When you have a thought, it is a tiny snowball at the very top of a snow-covered hill. You're not always going to be there at the top of the hill to squish the snowball. Why can't you just come out tonight? Why can't you just do the shoot? Whether it's your body image or it's your skin, like no one is going to understand unless they've been in that exact same position. Drilled into me from the beginning of my true fitness journey was aesthetics, your reflection, your muscle mass, and before and after pictures. The degree of damage that this did to my relationship with fitness, with food, and with running eventually took its toll on me. So I'm Nathalie Lennon. I am 31 years old. Don't feel like it internally, but apparently I am. So I'm living in Ireland. I'm in County Wicklow. When it comes to, I guess, my fitness journey and also kind of my career journey, because they're so intertwined, I went to college in Trinity in Dublin when I came out of school, and I studied earth sciences. So this was a degree that everyone's like, "What?" This was a degree that was half geography, half geology. And I kind of put that on, we call it the CAO here, like your choices when you're doing your big exams in school. I kind of put it there, number one, never thinking I'd get the points for it. And then I really got lucky with some exams, and I did. But number two, because I did love the outdoors and I knew I didn't really want to be like seated 9 to 5 at an indoor desk job every single day. I just knew it wasn't for me. Did the course, finished it, but when I graduated, it was 4 years long. I kind of realized how difficult it was to get work in that field. You really needed to continue with your studies and get a master's here. A master's would have cost kind of 10 or 12 grand. And I just wasn't in a position to dive straight into that. Meanwhile, in my final year, the stress of exams is obviously building and building. I got more into running and fitness. Now, I was always an active child, so I would have been in stage school. And I did a little bit of like cross country, but I was never like too competitive with running when I was younger or anything. But I was always moving, I guess, and felt like nearly every day had to have an element of movement to it. It was just like a tick the box sort of activity, but also something that I craved, which I do thank my parents for because they always had us so active as children. I think that has a big impact on how you treat fitness and running in the outdoors as you get older. So anyway, long story short, or not so short here, when I was in my final year, I got into doing like these workout guides online, which have been a bit controversial at the moment. The Kayla It Seems BBG guides at the time is what they were called. Um, so I got into doing those and I got into running a little bit more. That was my stress outlet while I was doing my final year exams. Then when I graduated, I had some time to play with. I was quite young. So I went and I did a personal trainer course. I think it was like a 4 week thing. I really enjoyed it. I wasn't really sure if I was doing it just for me or for the potential business opportunities at the end of it. And then I decided to apply for a job in a local gym, got that, started to build, I guess, my client base. Sorry, guys, my voice is breaking a little bit because I've been sick for quite some time, which we can get on to later on. But anyway, building my client base. And then all the time while I was kind of building my business as a personal trainer, I was also building my online following, not really with intent. It just kind of happened at the beginning. And then I guess more intent started to come along with that. So I was sharing just my personal fitness journey on my personal Instagram because that was the whole, I suppose, reason behind the BBG guides. It was supposed to be this online community. Now, when I say BBG guides, bikini body guide, I have to just kind of preface this with I don't agree with that name. At the time I was younger, I didn't really mind. It was very aesthetic based at the beginning of my relationship with kind of fitness and like, just the usual like squats, lunges, high intensity workouts. I didn't have a great understanding of it. And even then moving into the personal trainer course to gain that understanding, the course I did, like fantastic guys, but I have to say very aesthetic based. It was all about getting your clients the fat loss, the muscle gain. It was all about the before or after pictures that you could then use to further sell your business. So what was drilled into me from the beginning of my true fitness journey was aesthetics, your reflection, your muscle mass, your figure, and before and after pictures. And then what was also drilled into me subconsciously online was before and after pictures, they increase your following and they give you all this appreciation from complete strangers who really are going to forget about you the second you close your phone. But I was so unaware to all of this. So, like I said, my fitness kind of business was one thing, and then online, one of my before and after pictures went like viral at the time. This would have been like 2016 on Instagram when there was no stories. It was just photographs, not sure they even had videos there then. And Kayla, it seems, would have had like, I think at the time she could have had 3 million followers. She's way beyond that now, but she shared my before and after picture. And anytime she did that, you would get so many followers off the back of it because it's just Instagram was kind of different then as well. Girls looking for motivation to get to where you were would follow you. So this is what happened. She ended up sharing a few of my pictures over the years, or over the space of kind of like a year and a half. And my following, I think as a result of that, grew to like 20 or 30K maybe then, which is a small fish really in such a big pond nowadays. But to me, that was huge. Engagement was also very different back then. But like reiterating that it was all to do with people following me for motivation to change their aesthetic, to change their body. It was nothing to do with how I look at it nowadays, which would be like gaining health. It was all to do with fat loss. And the degree of damage that this, Ben, you're never going to get to ask me a question with my story. Um, the degree of damage that this did to my relationship with fitness, with food, and with running eventually took its toll on me. I'm trying to cut a long story kind of short here. So by 2017, I had done a bikini competition, a bikini physique competition, because I got to this point, Ben, where I was like, there's nothing else I can do to like further show people online that I can get really fit and that like I can show on my personal trainer flyers at the time in 2017 that I stood on stage in a bikini in, quotations, the best shape of my life. So I started this prep thinking this is just what every personal trainer does. It's just the path you go. And to be fair, at that time in Ireland, at least, that was the path that most personal trainers were going. It's completely changed now, and I love that. It's so much more health focused, not completely, but in a lot of areas in the fitness industry now. So I did this competition running at the time, just to bring that into this a little bit. I was only using now as like a purely fat loss mechanism. Like fasted cardio became a thing. I was doing it 5 days a week to get as lean as I could. And I guess I fell out of love with it a little bit because when I was doing it in my final year of college, I was so oblivious. It was for the endorphins, it was stress relief. And then that started to change when diet culture and the fitness industry toxic messaging then got in on my brain without me realizing the damage it was causing. This is why I always say to people, when you first do the program or you download my fitness pal or you start tracking your caloric expenditure and all, just be very careful because you never know how it could really affect you. Because I was like, I'd never get an eating disorder. Like after I do a competition, I'm going to bounce back. I'll be fine. I'll gain back the weight. We'll go back to normal. I'll just have the photographs. I'll have the memory. And that's not what happened to me after the competition. Yes, I gained back some weight, but it was like strict bulk, like exact meals. It still wasn't fun living, but I was okay with that because deep down the disorder was beginning. I was actually afraid to I'd have as much rice and potato and chicken as my coach allowed me, but I wouldn't go and have the pizza or the chips because I was too afraid. But then again, every 2 or 3 weeks, I actually would because I would just binge at the weekend, and then the guilt would kick in, and then the cycle just began and began and began. So I gained back some weight. Naturally enough, at this point, I did have an eating disorder and I didn't really realize it. The fear was there that I wouldn't be as well respected online, I guess, for not being so lean, because that's what my following literally was built off to begin with, which is sad when you think about it. So anyway, then I did a cut, which was such like a standard thing to do, and I still see it on Instagram now. Coaches or just any individuals doing the bulk cut, bulk cut. I do think some people can do that without it causing immense mental damage, but I think for some people it is really mentally damaging. For me, it was. So I did this cut, Ben, and I did a photo shoot at the end of it. And I have to say, like both on stage and in this photo shoot, I did not have muscle mass. I had never spent a period of time in, a surplus of calories and building muscle. So by the time I dropped fat, I truly was skin and bone. I wasn't healthy looking. I was underweight. I was also taking the pill at this stage. I just was in school and I'd never come off it. At this point, I'm a couple of years in the fitness industry and I'm going, okay, I've heard this word kind of female athlete triad, hypothalamic amenorrhea. God, I wonder if that applies to me. Hardly. So this is basically hypothalamic amenorrhea, for short HA, is the term for like a woman losing her period. And there's primary and there's secondary. I know you would know all of this. So when I came off the pill, initially I was like, no, I don't have it because I'm having this um, bleed every, 21 days when I come off it. But little did I know then that was completely fake. It was nothing to do with my actual hormones, which are the absolute pillar of particularly a woman's health. So the more I started to realize how much damage I'd done to my body, number one, the guilt I felt for being this wellness influencer, and doing articles and stuff for newspapers locally and trying to be this epitome of health. And I just deep down wasn't. And the guilt was eating me up inside. The disorder was getting worse. I was being so restrictive on my food. I never gained back the weight. I was probably 6.5, 7% body weight. Not good for a girl and not where you're going to have a healthy menstrual cycle. I came off the pill. And this is where it all got kind of difficult for a couple of years because like at this point, fitness it was my outlet again. I wasn't doing it just for aesthetics, but it was all I had. Running and weightlifting were all I had for stress relief, to silence my thoughts. And I felt like I had to do it every single day. But I came off the pill, I didn't have a period. And when you reach this point of having hypothalamic amenorrhea, so no period for at least 3 months, you're kind of diagnosed with it officially. The female body doesn't just get it back by gaining back some weight. You really have to rest. You have to stop doing cardio. You have to stop doing high intensity interval training. And I was like, this is my business. Like I teach classes. I kept on saying like I have to do it or I'm not gonna make money, I'm gonna lose my following. But deep down, like I didn't have to do it. There was definitely ways I could have gone about it, but I craved it.
Yeah.
And it took me 6 years. It took me 6 years to get my period back. And I'm so lucky that I was at the age I was, because if I was any older, I probably would have become osteoporotic. Like I would have got osteoporosis because I was borderline osteopenic. Um, but if you like get your period back below the age of 30 and everything as a woman, if you've gone through the same journey, you should be fine. You can build back up bone density. So luckily I did, but uh God, it's a long time, Ben, since you asked me to tell you my story. So I'm getting to my point here. Over that span of 6 years, I went kind of on and off with this patch of, oh, I love running. I just want to do it. I love the sprint. I love the outdoors. I love the endorphins. But also being like, I can't. I need to rest if I want to get my menstrual cycle back and balance my hormones. So this was kind of like an internal battle for quite a few years. Eventually, we got there. We got to a point where I got my body fat percentage back to a place where it was healthy. I had stopped running for a, like maybe kind of a year and a half at this point, and I'd stopped teaching classes, and I finally got my period back. And then I waited for 3 months, kept everything the same before picking back up cardio again. One point that I left out throughout these 6 years, Ben, was when I was kind of fighting on and off with like run, don't run, run, don't run. I picked up an injury and I like definitely was pushing too hard. I was underfueled. But this injury is an injury that can happen to anyone, whether you're fully fueled in a healthy body or you're too lean and you're underfueled. It took a long time to get it diagnosed. So what happened to me was I got a partially torn hip labrum. So this is, you probably know all of this, but maybe for your listeners, it's like that little piece of tissue between the ball and socket in your hip. It's tiny and it kind of half tore. I'm doing the hand motions here. So I got a few different scans. Eventually, they injected a dye and they could see a little bit of the dye kind of leaked through this area, and that's where they saw the partial tear. So they were like, you could get surgery, but it's only a partial tear. You're able to walk, you're not able to run. You might be able to run again in time. We'll give you a cortisone injection, do some rehab exercises, and we'll come back and we'll revisit it. You probably won't ever lift heavy again. You might deadlift, it could be from a platform, and you probably won't ever run much more than 5 to 7K leisurely with this injury. So you can imagine at this point, I was still actually trying to get my period back when I got this news. I was heartbroken because I was so excited for the day that I was going to be able to run again. And I told myself I'd be healthy enough to like maybe run a marathon someday. I'd get back there. Because I did run a half marathon throughout these 6 years before I got my injury. There's obviously a lot happened there. Um, so I went through this period of I guess rehabbing. I got the cortisone injection, which, as most people know, it's kind of like a band-aid on an open wound. It's not going to heal it. It just takes away the pain. So I had to be very careful not to get excited because the pain did go away with that injection, but I wasn't supposed to go running. I just had to still take it easy. I was still trying to get my period back. Fast forward a couple more years, as that wore off, the pain, it came back a little bit, but not too much. I continued to rehab very slowly. I found a really good physio. Every day I woke up kind of depressed because I did want to run, but I knew for my hip and for my hormones, I should not do it. So eventually, my period came back. Another year maybe passed, just trying to build back muscle mass and strength because I hadn't been lifting that much during that recovery period to get my hormones balanced again. And then, ever so slowly, with the help of a physio, I started to run little by little again. Like, I'd say the first run I did was maybe 300 meters on, 500 meters off for 2 kilometers. And I was dead. Like, it was so difficult. And I remembered being so much fitter. And that's one thing that's really hard to accept is how you can work so hard to build up your fitness levels and then just lose it again.
Yeah.
But to be able to run even for 300 meters, I was so happy. And I guess fast forward now another 4 years, I'm at this point where, um, against the odds, I guess, of the surgeon's words that day, I am deadlifting heavy enough. Now, I probably need to bring strength training back in a little bit more at the moment because I've been sick for kind of 2 months with this lingering cough and laryngitis. But all that aside, I'm lifting again what they said I wouldn't. I'm running again what they said I wouldn't. I did another 2 half marathons in the last year, and I have been training for my first full marathon before I got this bad cough and kind of laryngitis. That will eventually go and we'll get back on the road to a full marathon. But I view running and fitness now as such a blessing, and it's nothing to do with like fat loss. I really try and view it as performance gain and health gain. And it's all about just like a healthy lifestyle and experiences and the endorphins, of course, with the history I have and with the, I suppose, fitness messaging that still does exist and the toxic diet culture that still is out there. There's moments, I think, for any female and male where you kind of go, oh, how is my body looking? Do I like my reflection? Do I need to do more hip thrusts? Do I need to lose more fat? Like, I think that's so totally normal. So I'm never going to be a coach who says, your body image doesn't matter because it does. Let's call a spade a spade. But I just try and take away from it a little bit more. And I think if you enjoy the journey and the process and the exercise form you choose, you just feel that confidence growing in yourself as a result of how you treat your body and not exactly how it looks. Um, so yeah, and one more thing to add into all of this, I also did throughout those years a nutritional and health coaching course. So once I realized, okay, like my morals were not aligning with just being a personal trainer and just helping people like learn the basics to lose fat or gain muscle and meal plans, which technically personal trainers I don't think ever should be giving, but we were actually told what to do to help people calculate the calories to make one. I was like, I need to get a qualification here to try and do this differently and make sure I'm doing it right. Because I am someone who really respects qualifications within the industry. So I am a qualified nutritional and health coach, which I did in the Irish Institute of Nutritional and Health here for a year. So it's not a nutritionist, but it is a level 6, and I could go back and study for 2 years if I wanted to be there. So it's nice to have a more wholesome approach to coaching as well as my own lifestyle. And like I said, I've been sick for a little while, but hopefully I'll be back running properly again soon. So then, 20 minutes after you asked me the question, I know you probably didn't know anything about my story, so I wanted to give you, I suppose, the deep dive.
Yeah, I think as well, it's great to hear it from A to B, and also very interesting when you delve into the points of, the beginning of your journey to where you are now. I think it's very important for everybody listening and for everybody that follows their favorite fitness coach online to remember that they have a journey and a story as well. And like what they believe now and their messaging now isn't the same as what they believed back when they started and their messaging then.
Yeah.
Like we're all on this journey and we all kind of change our opinion based on the knowledge that we have. So I think sometimes when you look at somebody online and you maybe make a judgment call because of a post that you've seen, I think it's important as somebody that follows a quote unquote influencer to give people some grace from time to time.
Yeah.
I think that's something that we probably don't do enough of. And you just judge somebody from that post or that reel or that picture rather than how did they get to that point, if that makes sense.
It's so true, and it makes a lot of sense, and I feel like more of that is needed in the online world because, like, when I bring it back to, say, my own content that I was sharing throughout those years, there was a day where I kinda did share a post explaining everything and how I didn't share that I had lost my period, but I shared when I got it back. And I think I did a big Instagram, live at the time, or a really longer video where I spoke about it all when I could, when I knew that if I had a shared a message like sooner than I sh- before I got my period back, if I had a said that I was on that journey, it would have been an added stress that would have made it more difficult. So I just didn't. But I felt like I had so many people to apologize to because I felt like I had been, I don't know, just sharing a message that was actually not as healthy as I thought it was. But you even saying that makes me feel a little bit better myself because I suppose anyone is just going off the knowledge that they have been given at that time. And everyone in this industry, we're all just going down a path of continuous learning and evolving and changing. And our opinions can change, and what we believe in this industry can change. And I feel like the journey that I've gone on, I followed similar people that were at like a similar stage in their journey at the same time as me. And I have literally witnessed every single one of us who did, say, these guides back in 2016 go this same path of, I'm actually a bit too obsessed with X or Y. I'm going to become more holistic. I'm going to treat this more kind of like the whole picture and wholesome. And it's been really kind of heartwarming to see that so many people go this journey where they change what they believe in and they change their message online. And I think sometimes a lot of people in the industry can be afraid to share that they have changed their ways or their opinion or their kind of belief, particularly if you are a coach or you're selling programs or whatever it is, because you feel like people are going to come at you for going, well, you did sell like this 8-week shred guide 2 years ago, and now you're telling me I shouldn't care about my aesthetic. And I think people, like you said there, just need to have more grace because it's just going off the knowledge that they had at that time or where they were in their journey.
The issue is when you don't change. I think that's when the problem is, when people just stick to their guns and don't change and don't grow. It's like we all have that one friend, don't we, in the friendship group that will never admit that they're wrong or never change their opinion. And I think that's kind of the same when it comes to this space as well. If you've just got somebody that goes hell for leather straight from the bat and always sticks to that messaging, you're like, well, hang on. I've learned things over the last 6 months, 2 months, 2 weeks. So surely you've learned something and your story is different to what it was when you started.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And it can be really frustrating. But I guess you just have to realize that, you can't change everyone's opinion. I do find that really hard to sometimes watch as I scroll, like still seeing those who may have millions of followers continue to sell based off what they know, I guess, really sells quickly rather than what will help people long term. But I guess all you can do is hope that someday they will have that penny dropping moment where they admit to themselves that maybe they should change their messaging and their ways.
The audience is a bit more clued up now, I think, as well,
Yeah.
than a few years ago. So I think they know when to call certain things out, which
Mm.
is a positive change for the space. It's really kind of um, easy to see throughout your story as well. I think those positive habits breeding positivity, and those kind of negative habits maybe breeding. I'm not going to say negativity, but leading to negative things happening in your life.
Yeah.
Is that something that you felt now you're in a space where you're happy, you're healthy, you're focused more on the holistic side of things, more on health? So
Yeah.
when maybe you were, in that negative mindset with eating, body image, etc.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. It absolutely is, Ben. And like I said, health gain is a term that I try to use so much more than kind of fat loss or weight loss or aesthetic change. But I will always try and be that, I guess, coach or creator who says, like I mentioned earlier, like body image, I think still does matter.
Yeah.
Like I kind of don't agree completely with the aspects of the body positivity movement either, because I just think as a human, there's going to be days where you wake up and you're not positive about your body, and health is important. And I never want to be like judgmental or mean. I always want to be supportive, but sometimes I think it's difficult. It's easy for us to sit here and say, you know, gaining health and living this lifestyle that serves you physically and mentally. It's fantastic, and we love it, and we get up and we go for our runs. But I know that's not as easy for everyone. Like I know obesity is a crisis, and I know that's not easy to just wake up and go, "Oh, I'm gonna, start this health kick." I know it's a really difficult journey on both ends, but there's definitely parts of like the body positivity movement that I don't agree with, because yes, it's about health gain, but like for someone who may be in that position where they are obese, of course, their body image may matter to them, and they do want to lose weight because they'll have more confidence in themselves because of how they look. So it's kind of like this difficult fine line that you kind of have to tether around as a coach and a creator. And I think sometimes I struggle with that online because I feel like I don't have a direct message, because I'm not telling you to just be positive in your body all the time, but I'm also not telling you, that if you want to lose weight, that's not okay, because it is sometimes. So it's a difficult one that I feel like I haven't found anyone who shares this message perfectly, because I don't think there's any perfect way to do it, because I think it's such a fluid feeling that just changes day to day as we navigate, life and our bodies changing.
You kind of mentioned it before as well. I think, you know, we'd be lying to ourselves, and I think every single person out there would be lying to themselves if they said the mirror didn't matter, because the mirror does matter. It's
Exactly.
just how you approach that looking at the mirror, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense. Like,
Yeah, no, it really does. One thing that I didn't mention, because I guess it was not as important, but I can bring it up now. So I've struggled majorly with acne. And I guess that's a different type of, it's still the mirror, it's still your reflection, it still affects how you feel. And I was up and down with it a lot. I was on, antibiotics every different, I'd say I've spent probably 7 or 8 thousand at this point on my skin, because it was bad. And then I went on Roaccutane, and that helped majorly. And then I was nearly going to cancel this yesterday because I got this boil out of nowhere, and it's probably just because I've been run down. But like that reminded me of just how much your reflection affects your confidence. That could be a spot, it could be 10 spots, it could be a scar, it could be your weight, it could be your shape. It really does affect your confidence so much, and how you put yourself out there with your friends, with your love life, with your career. I sat down with I didn't sit down with him, I had like a call with my accountant yesterday, the day before, and we were looking at just changes in my earnings from last year, 2024 versus 23. And 23 wasn't my best year. 24 was so much better. Now the tax man still comes to get you, so what does it matter if money? When I sat back and I was like, what was the difference like between Oh, yeah. 2023, I spent weeks, if not months, in tears, having panic attacks, cancelling events, cancelling recordings, not posting on Instagram because my face was like in bits from these huge boils and cysts. And in 2024, I had just about finished up my Roaccutane journey come April or May. That's a really strong, serious kind of antibiotic or drug for people with serious acne, for anyone who doesn't know. Um, so it was actually just yesterday I had this penny dropping moment and I said it to my partner. I was like, that was the difference. I was like, that's how much it doesn't just affect your confidence. Like, I know money isn't the be all and end all, but like it's far more stressful when you're really tight with your finances than when you're just in a secure position. And my reflection completely was what was governing that as someone who's self-employed and kind of relies on putting her face out there. So that whether it's your face or it's your body, it gave me such a I think it gave me like I already know that I'm an empathetic person, and I don't say that in like a big headed way. I just know because I cry over feckin' anything that has to do with me or not to do with me. Like I'll cry over an ad that I see on the telly, but it just gave me so much more empathy towards anyone struggling with body image of any kind and how it affects them in their day to day lives because it can be huge.
I think that's so relatable as well. I mean, personally, I can relate to that, and even to the extent of, we're in a very similar industry, me and you, so I can relate to it in that way, in the sense of, doing recordings or making videos, or
Yeah.
somebody asking you to do this shoot or that shoot, and you kind of being like, I'm not happy with how I look right now. For me, it's never been skin. I've been very lucky in that respect, but my weight has fluctuated over the years, or I've thought it had, even though it probably hasn't to a
Yeah.
huge amount to other people. And when you're not as confident with your body or not as confident in yourself, it does make those things harder. It makes it harder to say yes to that amazing opportunity that on paper you would always say yes to, or even something as simple as, you're out, you're with your friends and you want to
Yeah.
capture a moment, and you're like, "Oh, no, don't worry, I don't really want this photo." There are so many moments now that I'm like, "Why I wish I just had that photo." But
Yeah.
it's that internal feeling that you need to come to the realization that that is the case
Mm.
for it to change. You can't have everybody else saying to you, "Oh, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine," because that's not gonna help, is it?
No. And it's difficult because, a problem shared is a problem halved.
Yeah.
And you should speak about whatever it is you're struggling with. But sometimes you have to be careful, I think, who you share that problem with because the more people just say, it's not that bad, it's fine, come on, don't worry about it, no one's going to notice, it doesn't always help. I had this huge conversation with my mom at one point during the acne journey where it was another day where I was in tears and I couldn't breathe. And I was like, right, mom, you need to stop telling me that it's not that bad or that no one cares about my skin and that people like me for who I am. And maybe it's this, maybe it's that. It'll get better, give it time. I was like, I was like, I know you're trying to help, but you actually need to stop saying all of that in these moments because I love you, but it's not helping. I just need you to let me cry. I just need you to hug me. I just need you to be there. Because I feel like often, I don't know if it's a real old Irish countryside mindset, but it's like, come on now, you're a big girl. Stop that
Yeah.
crying. Come on, pull yourself together. And as the months went on and on Roaccutane, I got this bad purge where it just gets a lot worse before it gets better. There came a point where I was like, if someone tells me to just pull myself together one more time, then I
I'm
wonder what.
going to go bad.
Yeah. um, but no, it definitely is the case that you like people think that they understand. And I think unless you've walked in those exact shoes, people don't understand. That they're like, why can't you just get in the picture with me? Why can't you just come out tonight? Why can't you just do the shoot? Whether it's your body image or it's your skin or something else, like no one is going to understand unless they've been in that exact same position. And you know what, Ben? Even if they have, it all affects people differently. Like it really does. And that's okay. Maybe your acne or your weight gain or weight loss affects you so much that you can't do things. And maybe for the next person, they're absolutely fine. And that's okay. Like it's your journey. You just have to take it step by step. But I feel like this is probably said in every podcast where things get kind of heavy like this, like counseling, therapy. I went and I did it all and it did help, but I actually just needed to spend a lot of time on my own in that period of my life until I overcame it. And looking back, I don't really regret like the events I missed or the things I didn't do, because that would have just stressed me out so much more. Having my close circle, my best friend or two and my family, that was all I needed in that time. Um, and I think you really have to put yourself first when you're going through those tough times and ignore what some people say, like the likes of people who are like, would you just come on? Would you just get in? I'm sure it's not that bad. If they don't understand now, I'm sure they will at a later stage. But you have to really put yourself first.
Again, it's coming back to that, everyone's on their own journey. And I do think that it's really important as well to say that, come into that realization yourself. Nothing changes until you come to that realization. If you haven't decided, and this can be related to a fitness journey, a running journey,
Mhm.
a self-confidence journey, a financial journey, until you come to that decision yourself that you're going to take that forward step, or your life is going to be in that forward motion, and you're going to stop kind of holding whatever you're holding, you you're not going to change, and your life's not going to change, because you need to realize it yourself before you can move forward. uh,
Yeah.
and I often think, like, I've done therapy, I've done all this sort of stuff as well over the years for various different things, and I have found it beneficial like yourself. But I think until I've realized myself that this is the thing, then it doesn't change. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you just don't change until internally you make that decision. And I think the therapy and speaking to friends and family, that can help you come to the decision,
Yeah.
but you have to do that yourself.
Yeah. That's so true. And I think one part of my life that I relate to that sort of mindset is bringing it back to body image. And when I was like severely underweight and I knew there was a bit of a serious issue brewing, and my family would be like, come on, would you just eat this family meal with us? And I'd be like, no, it's okay, I'll have this. And I'd have my, weighed out, whatever it was, sweet potato, chicken, broccoli, everything would be so calculated on my plate at that time. And it was kind of sad because I'd sit there wanting to have what they're having, feeling judged, feeling like secluded, knowing they weren't doing it to me, but they'd continue to be like, come on, would you not have this? Or why don't you have that? Would you not just rest today? Like, do you really need to go for a run? And like, they were totally right. At that time, they were totally right, but I just couldn't not do these things because that was essentially the disorder, which I should have said was kind of given the name of OSFED, which really frustrated me because OSFED stands for my voice sounds like a fairy at the moment because it sounds OSFED stands for Other Specified Feeding and Eating Disorders. And in that year, when I was told that that was the term, I remember looking it up and it was like over 60% of eating disorders are this group that has like no exact name, no exact box to tick, like no exact route to healing, no exact doctor or therapist who can help you. It was such a lonely journey, and I really wasn't sure I'd ever make it out of it because I knew I had this. I knew I shouldn't be running. I knew I shouldn't be like weighing out my food. I knew I should be eating so much more. I knew I should go out for the family meal, but I still wouldn't do it. But then all of a sudden, like what you said there, Ben, one day I woke up and it was like all of the people I'd spoke to, the dietitian, the therapist, everything in the years and months leading up to this morning, I just woke up and I said, that's it. You are starting your healing journey. And I remember taking one more picture. I was still very caught up in the reflection at the time, obviously. And I said, this is it. This is your lowest low picture. And that's it. And like, I still have that photo. I don't really share it anymore on social media. I used to. And the more the years have gone on, even on like National Eating Disorder Awareness Week, I used to share it as like a post just to promote recovery, but now I don't even because I just think there's no need to show that version of me. But that was the day that I had that penny dropping moment that you just spoke of, and no one could have made it happen sooner. it just had to be me. But speaking to everyone, well, not everyone, I probably didn't speak to my family that much about it, to be honest with you, Ben. But speaking to the therapist, the dietitian, I thought none of that was helping. And it probably was, because that day did just come for me. And I think anyone listening going through something similar needs to realize that the speaking about it may not feel helpful at the time. You may feel like you're getting nowhere, but a day will come. And even in saying that, when my penny dropping moment arrived, it wasn't just, easy from there on in. Like, recovery from any sort of addiction, disorder, or injury, it's never linear. It really is so far from linear. It's like that classic graph that you see pop up online, that's up and then it's down further, and it's up a little bit and it's down, it's back up and then it's lower. And at times I was like, I do want to heal. I am trying, but I don't think I can get there.
Yeah.
But like, you will. You just have to keep on believing in yourself, and like, give yourself the grace to have those 2 steps back, 1 step forward days to eventually get the 2 steps forward, 1 step back days.
I had a conversation with a guy called Ben West. It's on the podcast, actually. You can go and listen to that episode. And he said something, and this is something more recently that I now hold on to, because you pick up these little bits from different people throughout the years, don't you?
Mhm, mhm.
He was talking about the power of the brain. And I think it's a really cool message to kind of put across, the power that, the brain can be incredibly positive and can do amazing things. But you've always got to remind yourself that the brain can be incredibly negative as well.
Oh my
You
God,
can
yeah.
trick yourself over and over and over again in a negative way, as you can trick yourself over and over and over again in a positive way. So I think when you're in a negative headspace, reminding yourself, like, my brain is playing tricks on me here,
Yeah,
is such an important thing to do. And just remembering the power of the brain and what it can do is
yeah.
something that I think can help you in difficult times.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a psychologist I follow. Her name is Jean Lynch, Jean Your Best Self, I think online. I know her quite well, and I had her on my own podcast before, and she often shares little things like that about how your brain is literally like, it's built to spiral. It's built to make you feel all of this unease and the anxiety. Like, when my skin, it broke out before Christmas, and it was the first time it broke out before or since coming off Roaccutane. Now, I was quite run down as well at the time, but I got the same feeling of panic throughout my whole body. I couldn't move, I couldn't go anywhere. And I shared a bit about it on my story. And I remember she sent me a message and she was like, your brain is literally built to do this. It's not you. It was like, I think the term was like anticipatory anxiety or something like that. It's like, because you've been through the trauma before, the smallest thing that makes you feel like it relates to that trauma of the past, or like it could happen again, you're just feeling the 100% anxiety based off the anticipation that it could happen again. And it's like, I think that's the term, Ben, something like that, where this is actually, it's, what's the word? It's like physiological. It's
Yeah.
like, you could not stop this if you tried. So don't feel bad about the fact that you feel it. Sit with it. Know that this is how your brain works. And once you know that, you can handle it so much better. And once she told me that, like, it's had a huge impact on me this time around, where, yeah, the breakup got me a bit down, but it's like, it's okay. This will pass. Or like, if you have if an injury like flares up, sometimes people can go through this like huge anxiety because they've had the injury that's caused them to, rest, or it might stop them from training for months at a time. And you get this same level of anxiety because you think it's going to happen again, but really you could be fine in a day or two. It's just how your brain works. And when it comes to like your thoughts spiraling, I think is kind of a term for what we're addressing here. When I went to a counselor before, and I was literally just wanted help to stop my thoughts from spiraling, because I'd sit down with her and I'd be like, I could wake up the next morning and be like, why the hell was I so upset about that last night? Like, it really wasn't that bad. I had nothing to worry about, whatever it was. And she was like, you need to try and remember in those moments that, like, when you have a thought, it is a tiny snowball at the very top of a snow covered hill. It's tiny. And you're not always going to be there at the top of the hill to squish the snowball and stop it from rolling down. Sometimes you will be, sometimes you won't be. And if you're not there, it's just going to roll down and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And you'll be there at the bottom with this huge spiraling snowball or thought. But the more you recognize that, the further up the hill you'll go, and you'll be able to squish it sooner and hopefully squish it completely before it becomes this big spiraling thought as time goes on. And I was told that maybe 2 years ago. Sometimes I can put it into practice and other times I can't. But even at the times when I can't, I still find peace in the knowing this is just like a moment where I haven't been able to squish the snowball and it's going to pass. It may not be right now, but it will pass.
And it's the same as how the brain can be positive in the moments. Those, difficult running sessions or those
Mhm.
difficult runs that we haven't wanted to go out on, and then you get back and you feel amazing, or you push through that final interval, or you do that, and that's when the brain is so powerful because you can trick yourself, can't you? You can say, "Ah, it'll be fine. It's just one more," or we all do that in maths, which is like, oh, if you're doing 8 reps, by the sixth rep, you're thinking, "Oh, the next rep will be the last rep, or the one before the last rep," and then you're thinking on the one before the last rep, the next one will be the last rep. It's like you're
Yeah.
just tricking yourself. I know a marathon was the plan in
Yeah.
the kind of near future, and we kind of spoke about it before we hit record, and I wanted to bring it up because I think that message as well is incredibly powerful
Mhm.
that you shared with me. And yeah, I'd like to bring that up now, I guess.
Yeah.
You've been poorly for a couple of months. We've mentioned that.
Yeah.
Um, Kind of how has that affected the lead up to what was supposed to be an early April marathon?
Yeah.
How has the
So
journey changed?
in December, I did a half marathon and I was
Yeah.
feeling like, okay, if you're at the half marathon point once more, um, let's and I was so when I ran that half marathon, Ben, I ran it in the same time as I did the one that I ran before my injury all those years ago. So to me, that was a real sign that like you're back. Like you are now ready to take on the full marathon distance. But even mentally, because anyone that's ever suffered with a disorder, like you're kind of advised not to do long distance running because it's people just say it's another game with numbers that never ends, which often is what a disorder related to eating is. But I kind of fight that. I don't think it's the case because I didn't go backwards. So anyway, got the half marathon in December and my time would have been like just so 1 hour 44. I know you probably have had many elite runners here surpass that, but for me I was so thrilled with that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So that's when I decided, let's sign up for the full marathon. You'll have 4 months from now. You can take a few weeks after this one to kind of reset, and then kind of come Christmas just after that, hell for leather. And that's exactly what I did. And I was absolutely loving the journey. I said I wouldn't let it become my whole personality, like training for a marathon, but I totally did. It just does take over your life pretty much. But I was loving it. I was finding such empowerment in the journey, in completing the long runs, in completing the interval sessions. I was using the Runner app and I did find that fantastic. And then it got to my 28-kilometer long run back at just about the beginning of February, end of January. Beginning of February? Yeah, beginning of February. And when I got back from it that night, I was so tired. And then the next day, I started to develop a little bit of a cough. And my partner had a cough the 3 weeks prior to me. I thought that was uh, a long story short, I had a head cold at the beginning of January. It was nothing. It was like 2 days and then it was gone. You know the way that can happen sometimes. And then he got the cough just at the same time as me. So we kind of thought, oh, whatever I got, you got. But for you, it's a cough. But for him, this was a serious cough. It just was so bad, nonstop. I've never heard anything like it. So I just thought it just affected him differently. Turns out then 3 weeks later, I got this cough, and I'm not sure if it's like this in the UK at the moment, but right now, like, I've heard some people speak of this chronic cough that is doing the rounds. People are struggling to get rid of it for 3 or 4 months. They're kind of fear-mongering people, calling it the 100-day cough, and it seems to be that which I got. Now, I do know, obviously, when you're marathon training, it can be difficult to keep your immune system up to 100% because you're pushing your body so hard. I really was trying, but look, this cough got in on me. What could I do? It came on so quickly. 2.5 weeks into the cough, I completely lost my voice, and I've never lost it to that level. Like it was not even a whisper. And this was also the time that I was due to go and run the Barcelona half marathon with Brooks. It would have been my first time to connect with Brooks as well as a brand, which I was so excited for. Um, so it came to the weekend of the Brooks half marathon. I had absolutely no voice. The cough was still pretty bad. It was on the Sunday. This was like the Thursday. Now my partner Max was due to come with me and run it as well. So I let them know. I was like, look, I'm really not well, but I'm going to go. Worst case scenario, I'm not able to run. I just support and create content supporting. But like, so I went, we did the shakeout run, 4 kilometers. I was coughing quite bad. We didn't really mingle with people too much because I just wasn't able. My voice wasn't there. The Sunday morning, my voice was actually back somewhat, and people were like, we can actually hear you now. And I decided to go and run the half marathon and just take my time with it. I said it didn't matter, when I finished, but of course, I took off. It was sunny, like everyone was just in such a good mood. My time was good for the first 5K, the first 10K. And then I was like, right, let's put the head down and keep going. But I was recording a lot of it at the same time because I was there to create content, I suppose, as part of my job too. Now, once I crossed that finish line, this is the perfect example of what you should not do, guys. If you're somewhat unwell, don't go push yourself in a half marathon. I coughed to a level that kind of scared me, but within 5 minutes, it was back to the normal cough that it was. However, the pain in my back got really bad. So, as a result of the coughing being so severe over the period of 2.5 weeks, I was starting to develop this before the half marathon. I didn't realize. I thought it was just like a muscle spasm. It's called costochondritis, which is inflammation where the cartilage of your rib cage meets your sternum. It can just happen from kind of vigorous coughing. So after that, we're now the 21st of March. It's been 5 weeks. My voice of recording this, Ben. Um, it's been 5 weeks. My voice is still struggling from the laryngitis. The cough is absolutely still here. Nowhere near as bad. I've barely coughed speaking to you, but you know yourself when you have a bit of a cough. It's when you try to do cardio that
Yeah.
it kind of kicks off. So we are now 2 weeks off what should have been my first marathon. In that time from when I got sick, I did the half marathon in Barcelona, and that was kind of it. In the last 2 weeks, I've played around with like maybe a 5, a 6, a 7K, nowhere near a 42. And I feel like no one online speaks about the incredible disappointment when you've been training so hard for like 3 months and even the 4 months before my half marathon. Technically, that's 7 months all leading up to the big day. And then it just doesn't happen. And there's just nothing you can do about it. And everyone's asking me, are you all set for your marathon? I'm like, do you not hear this? I can't do it. And I've kind of lost. I said this to you before we started recording. Like, I was loving the journey so much. I was so excited for it. And I kind of lost my zest, the excitement right now. I have signed up for another one the end of June. I haven't really started training for that yet because clearly I need to wait a little bit longer. And like, I was in speaking with my mom today, and she was just like, I think you went back to running a little bit too soon because you're just still not well. Like, do you know what? Maybe she's right. I think sometimes they say, if you don't rest, your body's going to make the decision for when you rest. I'm not saying I wasn't resting enough or wasn't fueling my body enough, but I'm trying to find some sort of peace, Ben, in it maybe just not being the right time for me. Maybe April, it's just not when it was supposed to happen. Before I got sick, I found out no one would be around. Like, my partner would be away, my family would be away. So I was going to have to go down and stay over and do it all on my own, which is fine. I've no problem doing things on my own. But maybe that wouldn't have been the best thing for me either. So who knows? It definitely is difficult to train for something for so long and then have it taken away from you because of, a silly little cough that's so long lasting. But I think what's so much more important is realizing that there will always be another marathon. There will always be another journey to get you there. And what matters more than anything, and it's exactly what we said at the beginning of this call, it's your health. I mean, we're not running to prove a point to anyone. We're running for kind of the confidence and the journey, and the learnings along the way. And like most people say, marathons, it's never about the big day, really. It's about the journey. And even up to the point of before getting sick, and then even being sick and accepting that, okay, all that training, was it for nothing? No, it wasn't. I learned a lot along the way, and I realized how much I can do. I enjoyed it all. I got to learn more about kind of my performance. And then I learned how to slowly but surely just accept that sometimes it's not meant to be. And hopefully, look, in June, fingers crossed, I'll be able to run the one that I signed up for in Waterford. And then if I can't, like if this lingers for another 4 or 5 weeks, it'll just be a different one again. We'll just have to wait and see.